Good evening, everyone. Welcome to LFC Transfer Room. I'm here tonight, joined by Carter and Shawn to discuss the latest developments around Liverpool Football Club. Quite a few topics for this evening. We know that Liverpool played a friendly earlier today. They've lost to Preston, and now the whole internet's gone mad, apparently. We're going to get into that for a bit, mainly because it's probably not necessarily the best idea to discuss so much than no one's actually seen. But we'll obviously mention that. We're going to discuss Trent and Real Madrid, which we know since the beginning of the summer. There's news about it. Obviously, Liverpool and Trent are still in contract negotiations. Will he, won't he? We'll see. Personally, I won't. I can necessarily say that I'm too worried about that, but you never know. Crazier things have happened. We're going to discuss Rhys Williams, the cult hero, and Koumetio, who are set to move away this summer, and then obviously touch a bit on transfers as well, because speaking about people who are losing their minds, Yoro and Ugarte are both seem to be heading to Old Trafford, so that's not necessarily the best of news for anyone who wanted him at Liverpool at some point or another. So these are the topics that we'll be discussing tonight. Until we move forward, make sure to like, subscribe to the channel. Of course, if you're over on Twitter, on X, whatever you want to call it, make sure to come over to YouTube, subscribe to the channel, and basically tune in pretty much every evening, 7:30 p.m. UK time. Carter, how's your evening, mate? How are you still hurting after the loss against Preston?
Yeah, my evening's good. It's quite hot here in the capital. It's very warm, so I'm just trying to chill. And obviously, as we all are, it doesn't really matter. But it would have been nice to see sort of 3 or 4 nil, sort of from the game today. But it is what it is. I'm good. I'm just honestly, I think the positive I take is the young guy Nalo Diallo. You only saw him for like a split second, but I actually thought he looked huge. Like he looked like he was a lot very filled out. So for me, that's I've taken a positive from today. That would be that.
Yeah, and there's obviously a lot of young players who are involved. I think Nioni, if I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Yeah, him as well. I think as in those 4 minutes that we've seen, he looked rather sharp. We're gonna obviously be interested to see how he looks in the next season as well. Sean, mate, how about you? How's your evening? How did you live those 4 minutes you've seen against the Preston game?
Yeah, same here. It's getting very hot and humid for some reason. But listen, this game doesn't mean anything, to be honest. It's a closed, behind the closed doors. But only thing I would see, I think I saw the meltdown in on X, and James Pierce wrote out something like the young squad, and then people were commenting that Salah played, Sabo played, so don't brush aside as the young ones. So that's the only thing I would say. If Slot hadn't played some of our stars, so to speak, like the first teamers, maybe look at the academy a bit more, given them the opportunity, like the full game, and then seen them. Maybe we wouldn't be discussing too much about it on social media. But overall, it doesn't mean much, to be honest. I think it's just getting some of the tactics right, some of the players he wants to see in their positions for the first time. Yeah, it's not a big deal. But yeah, I agree with Carter. A 3-4 nil. Yeah, who's complaining? But we move.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a, let's say, a bit of a test for our fan base, because we've talked about it at the end of the last season as well. Ever since we knew that we were going to get a new manager, I think we are going to have realistic expectations about him and the squad in this first season, because now you can't really expect Slot to just come in and everything to just to be slotted in perfectly, or you expect 99 chemistry like on FIFA and everything's all right. You can, I mean, obviously you have to, Slot has his own ideas, system, footballing, has a different view basically on the way the team should play, and so that's why I think we're gonna have to wait for, probably, I'm guessing, close to a season to see Liverpool play what actually Slot wants us to play. So Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting season. Hopefully, we're going to have, as I said, realistic expectations, and people are not going to lose their minds over, a few losses here and there. But we're going to have to wait and see. Maybe everything just, happens naturally. Maybe we'll win the league and slots for season, but that's wishful thinking. So, um, moving on. Speaking of losses and wins and stuff like that, I'm guessing one player that we absolutely want to keep is probably the best right back in the world, Trent Alexander-Arnold, who is still rumored to be on Madrid's radar. Obviously, as we know, since the beginning of the summer, Trent and Liverpool are still in contract negotiations. I mean, not the beginning of the summer, but well, they were supposed to start to have those contract negotiations and to start to see when Trent actually puts pen on paper, and we're going to have him on another long term deal. But up until then, speculations are not going to stop. And so, once again, I think Romano posted today that Madrid are still waiting for news. I think I've said this before on stream. Part of me obviously doesn't want to lose Trent, but then there's the other part of me that thinks if Trent moves to Madrid, then people will not have. I don't think people have any other, reasons not to call him the best right back in the world. So for him personally, that might be, great move for him and his career. Maybe a move to Madrid basically, places him in a top best right backs in football history at the end of his career. So that's where I am on it. Honestly, I'm not necessarily that worried, Carter. I don't think that Madrid are actually going to be able to pull it off. I don't think we'll be, stupid enough to basically let him go and not give him what he wants. But, as I said, crazier things have happened. So your thoughts on Trent or Madrid, the whole saga?
I think he'll stay. I think my overall thing, if I had to put a bet on, I'd bet on him to stay. But I think the issue is, it's kind of what you said. I think it's how we sort of treated and analysed here. Like, you look at Carl Walker making team of the tournament when he had like 4 or 5 mistakes or errors that led to goals against England, and you just look at how they compared. And I think for Trent, I think if he went, it'd be understandable. He's won almost everything with us apart from Europa League. He's been so good, and sometimes for sort of to elevate yourself at Madrid, you're taken onto another level, like perceived by everybody, apart from maybe Barcelona fans who might underrate you, but no one really cares about that because you're probably winning a Champions League every other year. But I think my big issue would have been if Pep looked like he was staying for 4 or 5 more years. I think we'd really, really need Trent. Like, I'd move absolute heaven and earth to keep him, because I think he's really the X factor that sort of bridges the gap between us and them. But I do think now, with it looking like Pep might leave in a year's time, with Arsenal looking very good, but not as sort of good as we and City were at our peak, I think if you had more defensive fullbacks and you sort of let Harvey Elliott and Soboslai, let them do the attacking, I don't think we'd ever reach that same peak as we did on the Klopp. But I think we could easily still be a 91, 92, 93 point team without him. So I just think if he goes, we have to sell him. I just think letting him go for free is terrible. But I think with the manager, you can't blame the club, you can't blame him, because if Klopp's leaving, how can he sign a deal? Like, he needs to meet him. He hasn't even met him yet. So I think we're just in a bit of a limbo at the moment.
Yeah, that's also fair. So it's actually quite an interesting, view on it. I didn't necessarily took Pep into this whole conversation into account, but yeah, it makes sense as well. Obviously, Trent, I think I've said it on stream as well, as a right back, for him to have numbers close to what Kevin De Bruyne have for City, that's something special, and that's probably the X factor that you were mentioning there as well. So, Shawan, your thoughts then on Trent? Is he a must stay for you?
He is a must stay. But if we are gonna be like hoping that this will be another Gerard 2.0, it's not going to be, because things have changed. Footballers have evolved, they've moved forward. It'll be difficult to keep Trent without a big good project, and I think you cannot blame him. Like imagine him going to that Madrid team with Mbappe, Vinny Jr., and Bellingham. He will be he will be licking his lips every game, every opportunity that he gets. And who knows, he'll probably end up winning many more Champions League and titles, and also in the process being shout for some of the personal awards as well. So you cannot blame him because he has won everything with Liverpool so far in his young career. So, and if he doesn't do the move now, I think this is his age. He's going in that 25, 26. That's where he's now. So he's probably looking at this as maybe now or never, because the kind of intensity that he's already played in with the club system, and then Slot's going to be the same intensity. Maybe in another 3-4 years, he might not have the legs or the pull for a club like Real Madrid, because they will look at younger right backs. So I don't think you can blame him, but also this will tell a lot about FSG moving forward. I mean, what kind of club they want to run, because we still don't know if this Klopp tenure was a Klopp show fully, or was it an FSG as well. Because, you know, before Klopp, we had Brendan Rodgers, and yeah, we went close, but there have been times, even there's been a recent interview from Klopp, he said he was backed, but he was never been able to do what he wanted to fully. So I think there are a few questions there. I know we have changed our hierarchy and everything. So this will show us the ambition the club has. And the top players will give you the first direction where this club is heading, because the top players want to be in top sides. They want to win, challenge for everything. Why would Trent leave if he was offered, this perfect opportunity here at Liverpool? That's the easiest thing for him to do, right? So the moment Trent leaves, I think I'll take it personally as an indication that the club is not heading in the right direction, to be honest.
Yeah, I actually do agree with that. So that's another good point as well. We've seen it with Mo Salah when basically FSG offered him whatever he wanted, so they didn't accept losing him. So this will be another test for them, I guess. But all these conversations about Trent, the friendly, or the other transfer news are not nearly as important as the news that we are going to break right now live on stream. It's the return of Dan Underwood. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Dan.
John Henry's paying me to be here, just so you know.
The
Sorry, Sean.
hopefully they're saving some of the money for.
I figured he'll send someone, and who better than Dan, for sure.
And just so you know, the payment was in nothing but what is it? Subway sandwiches, which is
That's
fine
a
with
lot.
me. I like food, so I'm being paid in food right now. I might as well just be a serf at this point.
I'm actually going to ask you something that's actually this is pretty much the topic that we were discussing. So we now know that you're on FSG's payroll, but is Trent going to be as well in the next few seasons?
I mean, this is kind of the problem. So if Trent wants to be a midfielder, he can't go to Madrid because Madrid's going to play him at right back. Like, Madrid don't have any center backs. That's why they wanted Euro. They didn't want to spend 55 pounds or 65 million euros for a Euro like United did. There is I think for me, the thing about the Trent Real Madrid thing is more of this was brought up now that the Euros are over, is that it's just an easier life. Now, that's hypothetical because you can go to Madrid. The pressure's different. Obviously, there's a lot of issues with racism in La Liga right now. Vinicius has seen it. I think June has had issues with that as well. But like any player that is obviously, non-white, especially any player that has any sort of darker complexion, is going to get racist chants in La Liga, because we've just seen so many clips of that and they've had issues with it. But in Trent's mind, it might be that, do I want, let's just say, 250 grand a week at Liverpool, where I have to deal with Gary Neville calling me a shit midfielder and a shit right back. And, the only reason I didn't play for England is because I'm not Calvin Phillips, which Gareth Southgate said with no sense of irony and no sense of self-criticism on that assessment of a player. So I think in Trent's mind, he has nothing left to prove at Liverpool. So the thing about Madrid is that is an allure, that is a thing that is just going to hang over his head. I mean, I'm trying to think of all the Liverpool players who went to Madrid. So McManaman. Did McManaman run his contract down? Carter, Sean, Mihai. That's a little bit before our times, but
Yeah, he was one of the first. What was the name for the transfer? Like the thing just came through. The Bosman. It was like right
yeah,
after Bosman. He
yeah.
was one of the first to go.
Yeah, so I mean, I could definitely see a situation like that. I don't agree with Sean that Trent leaving and not signing a new contract is a sign of like decay at Liverpool in any sense of the word. Because one, it's Madrid. If he was running down his contract and going to Chelsea, I'd be more worried. But I think the fact that it is Madrid, and as much as they have a lot of money, they obviously don't have infinite amounts of money. They've only spent money on, well, actually, no, they haven't even spent money on Kylian Mbappe. He was a free. They weren't willing to pay the price for Lenny Euro, and they need center backs. They legitimately have almost no center backs at this point. So, and we just have to deal with that reality. It would suck because Trent is the vice captain and he should be captain Liverpool. That is like the allure that you can keep him here. But I mean, that's a possibility. But for me, at least, if Trent stays and signs a new contract, I'll love him to death. If he runs out his contract and leaves at the end of this year, but Liverpool are still, let's say, I don't know, we have a title challenge and we make it to the semifinals or final of the Champions League, he's done all he can. If he wants to go play right back from Real Madrid, go play right back. That's ultimately his decision. I would still love him and appreciate everything he's done for the club. I don't think he would do that. I think he would, when he comes back when he comes back in August, he'll probably have those talks with Michael Edwards, Richard Hughes, and Slot, saying, where am I going to play? What are your expectations? Because if Slot wants to make a midfielder, which I think is a strong possibility, I think he'll stay because he's probably going to be captain like a year or 2 years, because Van Dijk, even if he signs a new contract, I don't think is going to be playing a lot of games after this season. This will be the last time we see Van Dijk play 28 to 30 games, all competitions like Premier League and Champions League. So yeah, that's where I'm at this moment. I like to think myself as a, apart from FSG's payroll, a very rational when it comes to this, even though being a fan of Liverpool is a highly irrational endeavor. I just don't think we should panic either way. If we sign nobody and no one's contract gets sorted, maybe that's time to panic for the hills on September 1st. I don't think we'll be at that state. Not saying it's not possible. It definitely is, but I don't think we'll be there. So the only thing we can do really at this point is just, try to back the lads when we can. And then obviously if things just absolutely disintegrate, we'll just start marching on Boston. I'll start sending addresses to everybody.
Do you think you
Quickly,
can?
I just wanted to point out one thing, right? So why this comes down to FSG is I totally believe that FSG's model to sell and make the most, because they are good businessmen. At the end of the day, they have run the club really well. I believe from where we were at, if people remember, to where we are now, I think is brilliant. So having made a big loss, I see this as a loss in terms of finances. Like someone like Trent in a transfer market, you can get, I don't know, at least 60 to 70 million for him. And for Madrid to be able to just take him off free, which PSG couldn't do. I mean, they did, they tried to extend. So I would say, even if, they let Trent go, have that freedom, but sign him up. Sign him up with for another 2-3 seasons, and then Madrid can pay what they want to, and then get him, right? So that would be.
I agree, but we've lost players on freeze, and it hasn't really crippled like our ability to spend in the market. We lost a lot of players on free last year. We still bought 4 midfielders. Granted, we let 2 go, but we still bought 4, and we were probably going to buy 3. So, cut your cloth wherever you want to be on that. It isn't great business, and that's the inherent risk of not having them signed up 2 years ago. But we have to remember that 2 years ago, everything was in flux. Klopp just got his new contract. That was the quadruple year. Edwards was leaving, Ward came on, and then you have that summer where they get Nunez. They have the summer of, I wouldn't say no action, but maybe not enough action in hindsight, which is easy to say in hindsight, with Ward. And then they try to, the worst thing that FSG has done in recent memory is not, it's nothing to do with transfers. It's they went to look for outside investment, because what that did is that just completely changed the structure at Liverpool.
And that's a clear indication that they were looking for help, that they went publicly outside for help. But also the whole last season that you brought up, I think it has set us back quite a bit now, because Klopp's gone, and Klopp had bought some of those players who might not even fit in, like Graven, and I don't know if they're gonna, like, we would have had budget to spend this season if we hadn't got all those players in last season. And even Szoboszlai is not looking great at the moment, but who knows, things will change. But hopefully with the new regime that we have, or the system that we have with these guys like Hughes, they need some time. That's why I'm saying we need to be patient. I know a lot of people on air, on social media, like, why are we not signing players? I'm like, you need to be a bit more patient, because they need to gather their thoughts as well, how to trim the squad and how to get the best out of whom to fit in and bring in, right?
And Carter, what do you think? Because besides sign Anthony Gordon solves all of our problems, which I like Anthony Gordon too. I just want to say I'm not giving you grief without the fact you're not right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I agree, Anthony Gordon player, but what do you think too?
I think as you kind of said, it's like it is the change of manager really messed up these negotiations with sort of Trent, Salah, Van Dijk, and also it could be a good thing that we've changed manager. Who knows? But I do agree with some of the points of, like, we did spend a lot of money last summer, and I think sometimes there are opportunities, and you guys are going to look at me funny, but if McAllister is 55 million and Yuri Tielemans is free, sometimes you have to look at how that restricts you moving forwards. And my point was he's a downgrade on McAllister, but he's not a significant downgrade. So for me, someone like that and someone like Rabiot this summer, who's going to be free, who, if he keeps on a similar wage where he's at Juventus, allows you to move. And I'm going to say something crazy right now. If we had no money to spend and you told me we could sign Rabiot for free and we could get 55, 60 million for Curtis Jones, I would sell Curtis Jones. And I'm his biggest fan. So I think we've just got to be really smart, like Madrid, and get these guys who are on 1 year, 2 years, like Gordon's on 2 years right now. And we've got to negotiate and get these guys to not sign deals and get them for cheap prices. So if Salah falls off a cliff and we get 10 million for the Saudi league, if Van Dijk has a terrible injury in 2 years' time and we need to sign a big centre half, we have the flexibility to go out and get those players. That for me is the most important thing, that we are able, when maybe, in my opinion, Evan Ferguson in 2 years' time is available, you can go and get him. Those type of players. I think we need to be able to be flexible.
I will say, Carter, if we're selling Curtis Jones for 60 million, we only sign Rabiot, I will start storming the Fenway Park, looking for certain individuals, because that's essentially 6 times 4, that's 240 pounds you could spend on PSR. Like, that's the amount of more.
But they need money to spend on another team, so the 60 million.
Well, they're not going to. No, I know. I'm just going to say they're not going to pull money from Liverpool. I mean, the Bordeaux thing was interesting because the fact that they were at the meeting, Bordeaux gave their pitch, and they pulled out because Bordeaux's in just a terrible financial situation. They're already in the third tier of French football, which is essentially semi-pro. It's essentially the seventh. It's the Nations League essentially, and Nations League, the below League Two, is that what's called?
National League.
National League. There we go. So they're essentially like, it's like watching, what's the equivalent? It's like Villa being in the National League, for people who don't know how historic Bordeaux is. It's someone that historic in French football. Yeah, no, I would be very surprised if they only signed that. And if next I hear they're spending 180 million to take over Olympique Lyon, and they bought Rabiot for free, they got Rabiot for free and sold Curtis Jones for 60 million. Yeah, then I would start inquiries to Parliament. Get the PMs, assemble Parliament. Labour's got some questions to answer.
What happened in the last 10 minutes? Like, so many. Okay, I'm trying to process everything. Okay. Me personally, I absolutely no. I would give an absolutely not on Rabiot. Now, I know some people like him. Me personally, I just felt like he doesn't really do anything great. Like, he's okay at a lot of things, but he's not necessarily someone who's impressive. And I just felt like he's being that kind of a player. I think, I maybe that's my bias towards Juventus because I hate the club as well. But I feel like, when you go to Juve or PSG, it's basically like you've buried your career, and that's that.
My rebuttal would be, though, look at Jordan
Yeah.
Henderson and Jorginho Wijnaldum, who were decently physical lads who weren't great at anything, but were just solid all round. And look how successful we were.
My retort to that would be the fact that Rabiot has had attitude problems, and he's definitely not the hardest worker. Like Gini, Wijnaldum, and Henderson were
Yeah,
very
he's not.
functional. They're very functional. And I hate this saying that like they were great at nothing. Like Gini was great at opening space, dribbling, ball control, and passing between like 10 to 15 yards. Jordan could do 40 long switches like Gerrard or Alonso. Like like Jordan Henderson was not this random shite footballer from Sunderland. Like he could do really, 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 really good things with the ball. It's just he wasn't the most consistent at it.
And speaking about transfers, we're actually going to move into one of the other topics that we had in mind for this this evening before the Dan Underwood appearance that took us all by storm, including the direction of the conversation. Okay, so what we wanted to talk about is Yoro and Ugarte, who, as I've said at the beginning of the stream, are probably heading towards Old Trafford. Now, we know for a few weeks we've been discussing Yoro and the fact that he's, looks like the next big thing, as at least in his position. In the end, Liverpool decided to pull out of those negotiations because they didn't necessarily think that that's a realistic price tag for someone who's been, who's had like a really good season. That's pretty much it. With Ugarte, that's an interesting conversation now because obviously he was at PSG. Didn't really impress there, but he was one of the targets for us in the last summer transfer window. So maybe seeing these two being close to move to Old Trafford is more like insights, like kind of an emotional response rather than a rational one. Me personally, I've seen, as we've discussed at the beginning of the stream as well, I've seen a lot of talk online about not signing players and stuff like that. I think at the end of the day, it's the end of July and it's like almost 2 weeks left in July even. So there's still lots of time for us to transfer in some players. But then the other point that you can make is that's what we've been saying pretty much every summer, where we kept on saying that we need to sign these players, and then it's never really happened. So we're gonna obviously have to wait and see on that. Carter, I'm gonna ask you then. Yoro and Ugarte, I think we've talked about Yoro 2 times at least, us two, when we were on streams. I know your thoughts on him, but now that it looks like we're going to miss out on him, do you think Liverpool's decision was a fair one? Do you think that maybe we should have pushed for him?
I think my opinion is that if it gives us flexibility, I'm not mad at it because it was a big outlay. Apparently his agents and his family got a big outlay. He's got a big deal. I wouldn't be opposed to giving him a big wage. And I think, as you sort of said before, I sort of disagree with Dan saying I think Van Dijk's probably got 4 years of a lot of football. I think he's that good. And I think the way Slot presses will protect him a lot more. So I think he's got a lot longer to go. But I think someone like Yoro, and I know especially us Liverpool fans, if he makes one little mistake, we're going to pick him apart. But I think you've got to remember, for someone to be 18, to be playing at that level, to have sort of no major red flags in his game at all, to look very good, I think he would have been a player that I would have liked to spend money on. But I think the issue is that we need a number 6. And I think there's cheaper options elsewhere at centre-half. Like, can we, if we spent 60 million on Yoro, can we go and spend 80 million pounds on a DM, even if we have to overpay because there's no good DMs available? I feel like we know that with the possible turnover of Salah, of needing a DM, of probably needing to get a left back soon, I would have liked us to sign him, but I feel like with the sort of setup, I can understand why we didn't. In the perfect world, going to get hate for this, I would have got some money, sent Quansah to Newcastle, got Anthony Gordon, and I would have brought Yoro in that space, but I'm not running Liverpool Football Club, so
in some aspects it may be better, in some aspects it may be worse. So yeah. Well, you said you had interesting takes, Carter, before, but this is where Centeno draws the line. So 4 years max for Van Dijk. Yeah, if you look at Thiago Silva, to be honest, you kind of see that even in the Prem, even at, in the most intense league in Europe, he's still, a pretty. I mean, probably Chelsea's best defender still, even at his age. So, yeah, maybe Van Dijk won't play like 30 games in a campaign for 4 seasons in a row now, but he's probably going to be, I feel like, for more than a season. I disagree with you then as well. I still think he's got a bit more football in him, and even at the highest level. So time will tell, I guess. Okay, Shawn, then Yoro and Ugarte. So Ugarte is not going to be the sixth that we are hopefully going to sign in this summer. If not, if it didn't happen in the last one, Yoro is not going to be the center back they were going to sign. Apparently, Liverpool thought that with the center backs that we now currently have, Yoro is not necessarily the investment that they should make. Do you agree with that?
Listen, I think I would love to have Euro in the squad. I mean, he has a lot of potential, but the way the deal has been done and the way United have gone and overpaid the hell out of this kid, I don't see us doing that. We have never done it, and we shouldn't do it because you cannot have. I think Madrid stepped back, PSG, Liverpool, all the clubs stepped back because he had just 1 year left in his contract. He's only 18. He has just played one season. Yeah. So what was the whole decision all about was to have him one more season. You get a chance to see him again, and then he walks for free anyway. So that would make the most sense. But United obviously look desperate in a way, and they look like making statement signings. I think they enjoy that a lot. So probably this was one of those statement signings that they wanted to make with the Ineos group, who has come in new as well. So having paid like I don't know 60 or 70 million, I think Ornstein was saying it is close to 70 with add-ons. And Lille, don't forget this is League One. They're struggling for cash, and Lille apparently told this is again reported by Ornstein that Lille told Euro that he won't be playing next season and he won't get any minutes if he didn't accept this deal, because they were never going to get this much amount of money for Euro from any club. And next year he actually walks for free. So they were like they had no option but to sell him, and Euro had no option but to pretty much accept this deal because he got offered a bumper wage too. So I'm not too. We'll see. We might regret this in maybe a couple of seasons when probably he shows what he's all about. But at this point, I don't think with his age bracket, I think we shouldn't worry too much about this deal. The other one, Ugarte, however, is a different story. I think he's a ball-winning midfielder. He doesn't have the passing range, but at least he can give some cover for our defenders who've been, lacking that since Fab left, right? Fab, and I'm talking about the Fab that was, the best DM at one point, right? I think that could be a bigger concern because I don't see us getting linked to any DMs. However, there have been some, articles about us looking for defenders or, fullbacks. So the DM situation, I think Endo, to be honest, if you ask me, is not enough unless someone from the academy steps up and steps up big time. I think we'll be able to go through the whole season with all the competition. So I'm not fully sold on Ugarte either, but if not him, then who? At this point, we don't know, right? So it's a fear of unknown, right? What if we go to another season with just Endo and it doesn't work out, right?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons you stay away from Euro is also the fact that in 1 or 2 seasons he might want to go Madrid because that was his wish this summer as well. So in the back of your mind that you may be getting him now, but his mind is already set on Madrid come the next 2 seasons. So that's one of the reasons I would have avoided Euro as well. And yeah, regarding Ugarte, as you've said, Sean, I think we now have Endo and we also have Bajcetic, but one of them is already in his 30s and already looks like he can't be the guy to play every 3 days for an entire season. And the other one is still 19 or 20 years old. How I think 20, Bajcetic, 21 max, I think. Anyways, he's obviously just come after pretty long injury himself. So with these two, I wouldn't necessarily be certain that we're gonna make it to a whole season without an injury of at least 2 or 3 months to any of them. So that's another thing as well. I think, yeah. Then I'm gonna ask you the same question. We've touched on transfers before. Now I'm gonna ask you specifically on Yoro and Ugarte. Your thoughts on these two? I'm guessing you'd still believe we still need a sixth. Yoro, maybe a different conversation.
I hate the six conversation. I genuinely hate it. Nothing against Carter or Sean or Yumihai or anybody else in our chat, but I hate talking about it because it really comes down to what profile player you're looking at. The question of who is a six and who is not a six comes down to attacking structure, possessive structure, and defensive structure. Who do you want in that role, and what do you want them to do? Like Sean mentioned, Manuel Ugarte is a ball-winning midfielder. He will win you the ball and pass it 5 yards. That's great if you want that type of player. The reason United want that type of player is because they have like 4 of them, and they think a 5th one will make them better. Koumetio is a ball-winning midfielder who will take the ball and dribble and carry it, and then pass it 5 yards. His passing range isn't amazing, and I think Koumetio is a decent player. Scott McTominay, same idea. He's a ball-winning midfielder, carries the ball 5 yards and then passes it. Casemiro, before he got fat, was the same way, though his passing range was a lot better, as you can see with him being later. His passing range was similar to Fabinho's when he was less fat, and now on 350 grand a week. So it really depends on what type of player you're looking at. The reason United are trying to buy Manuel Ugarte is because they think buying another midfielder that can tackle and pass the ball 5 yards will somehow make them better. And he might, because he's just a better version of them, and they can play 3 midfielders that do that and do some version of what Liverpool did. 2017, have 3 midfielders that are very functional, who carry the ball and they can tackle and pass 5 yards. And that's fine. That might get United like 5th or 6th, possibly 4th, because, Lenny Yoro is a good player. I don't know if Ugarte is the answer, is my point to the question of the Liverpool 6, because I think they already have an internal answer, and that's Bajcetic, Endo, Curtis, Trent, Dominic Szoboszlai, because they're not going to play with a single pivot 6. They're just not. So I imagine Arne Slot already has in mind who he wants to play in that position. If he wanted Max Veifa, they would have gotten him before Brighton got him. There's no reason Max Veifa would choose Brighton over Liverpool if Liverpool seriously wanted him and Slot wanted him as well. So I think internally that's not really a question. The question is mostly availability, who is fit, who fits the role better, horses for courses, all that sort of thing. I like Ugarte and what he does. I don't think he's as revolutionary as people think he is. I just think he's a better version of Endo. I know Carter, I don't know if you, I think I've seen your chats, but I don't remember off the top of my head. So if I misquote you, please correct me. I apologize. But Manuel Ugarte is an improvement over Endo. He is a much better tackler than Stefan Bajcetic. But why would you pay 50 to 60 million pounds for, let's say 50 million pounds, 65 million euros for someone who is 10% better at this, when you have someone already in there and you have other players that you probably want to do that as well? I know people are going to disagree with the idea of Szoboszlai being a 6. The point of the 6 is ignore what 6 means as a lone sitting midfielder and think about it more of position and shape. If you're playing with a double pivot, your 2 pivots with each other, you're either going to want one to be a playmaker, one a destroyer. That's the classic 90s, 2000s way of playing a 4-2-3-1, very Rafa Benitez, or you want 2 very hybrid midfielders. I believe I would bet my net worth, which is currently negative $500, that what Liverpool's strategy has always been is they want 2 players that can do both. They can carry, tackle, destroy, and pass. They can progress carry, they can progressive pass. They win their duels and they progress the ball forward. Every player that we have in our team can do all of that, except maybe Trent, who doesn't win a lot of his duels, and that's where the question comes up. So on a Ugarte situation, I don't have a strong opinion. If we sign him, great. If we don't, who cares? Yoro, I am disappointed about Yoro, not because not because that he didn't go to Madrid, but the United signed him because he's better than all of United's center backs. Though I think he might find it a little bit difficult at United when you're facing 20 shots a game and people are just running at you every game. Can you imagine 19 other? Like, you have to remember the Premier League has so many good players in it. Could you imagine Brian Mbeumo running at you 10 times a game? They don't have a Brian Mbeumo in League. I'm sorry, they just don't. So I'm more disappointed that United got him and we didn't. I understand why we didn't get him. You're not going to pay 65 million for a center back that's going to play maybe 10 games. Lenny Yoro is not going to go to a team where he is third choice, arguably. You could argue second if you really want him ahead Konate, Gomez, and Kwanzaa. But on merit, he's automatically fifth choice. Maybe sixth because Sepp Vandenberg's there. I'm not saying Sepp Vandenberg's better. I'm just saying based on what's the word, meritocracy of the team. So I'm more disappointed in that one, but it's United, and United have bought so many they've bought so many players. My southern accent's coming out. I've bought so many players that I like that have turned out to be crap that I just want to see what happens with that dumpster fire more than anything else.
Yeah, that's a pretty fair point, and one that I agree with as well. I feel like United have, signed. I mean, to me, the funniest thing is when they've signed Varane and Casemiro in the same summer, and they've all of a sudden they thought that would solve all of their problems. But that's what happens when you buy players for big wages, big transfer sums at the end of their peak. They're gonna, slowly decline to a point where you get top four in a cup, and that's about it. But yeah, moving on away from the other team in Manchester. Now, cult hero Rhys Williams is expected to move this summer, as well as Billy Koumetio, two promising players, especially. I mean, I thought, obviously, with Rhys Williams, it hasn't necessarily nothing ever came out of his good season alongside Nat Phillips, and was kind of expecting for him to move. With Koumetio, for me personally, that's a bigger surprise. I think I would have thought he'd stay, or maybe we'd loan him at least. But that's apparently the news as of right now. Shaun, I'm gonna ask you basically on your thoughts about Rhys Williams and Koumetio, and the fact that they're both expected to leave this summer. Would you have kept any of them? Do you think that maybe with one of them at least being kept, you would have justified not buying a center back?
I wish them good luck, and hopefully wherever they're going, they have a good career. And I don't think Billy the Kid. There was a lot of hype about him at one point. I think one of the pre-seasons, there was a lot of talk about him being being groomed to be the next defender for us. But I don't think he's made that step. So yeah, why not, right? They're not going to get any game time this season because they're way below. And if Sepp stays, because I'm seeing a lot of articles saying that he's impressed in the trainings, then I don't think they get any game time. And we still have Nat Phillips, right? So I don't know what's the situation with him, if he gets sold, maybe loaned. So yeah, good luck, and I don't see an issue there selling both of them. I think it's a good move for both the club and the players.
Yeah, I think me personally, I would have still kept Koumetio. I still feel like maybe. I mean, obviously,
Really?
it depends on. Yeah, I just feel like it's, especially with the situation that you're having. You're now having someone like Konate, who's maybe who obviously unfortunately can't stay fit for like a long period of time. You have someone like Van Dijk who's aging, someone like Gomez who's he's actually, well, not necessarily aging, but playing three different positions, so he needs to cover someplace else in a certain game. It's like it would never been worse to have like another player that's been there for like a pretty long time, and he's used to the culture of the club and pretty much everyone in the dressing room as well. Mainly because, if I'm mentioning Rhys Williams, I remember that horrifying season where basically three of our main center backs got injured for long periods of time, and then we've had to improvise, and we still got top four. We actually finished third in that season somehow. But yeah, that's just me
I
though.
think that's our mentality too, right? If you look at clubs like Chelsea, they have so many youngsters that they buy, they loan, they sell. Some of them don't even make the first team like ever, right? I think we need to kind of also move on from that. Like for example, you have Van Dijk, you have Konsa, you have Konate, you have Gomez, who all four can play in those positions, and then you have if you want to keep Nat Phillips and Sepp van Vandenberg, so that's like six defenders. And I would say if Slot's really worried, then we should see. I mean, they should get another defender who can actually come in and has promise, and you spend that resources behind them, and they actually become that player, because we have to think of succession too. So yeah, for me, I don't think it's a big issue, but as long as we are proactive, as long as the manager knows that he's good in those areas, right?
Fair enough, Carter. Then all these conversations about Euro, but let's talk about the real hero in this conversation. That's Rhys Williams. Him alongside Koumetio now are planning to leave this summer. Would you have kept any of them?
I honestly, I just feel sorry for them. I think both of them, look, not every player, and this is why some players coming from the academy I really rate. Some players, and people might think I'm harsh, I'm happy to let them go, because sometimes people need to go and play minutes. Like Rhys Williams had a good spell in the team. Well, he did as well as he could, but then he's gone on loan and he's struggled. He hasn't played regularly. When that went on loan, he didn't play regularly unless it was maybe for Stuttgart in the second division. And I just look at those Phillips, Koumetio, and Williams, and I just go, if all three of us, well, all four of us in here, I mean, you three, if we were starting any game and we had one of those three at centre half, you'd be like, oof. And it's a horrible thing to say because they're good. They've made it pro and they've come through the academy, but I just think we need to let them go. And I feel like on some of them we've missed the boat in selling them. Like Nat Phillips, maybe before we could have got more money. Rhys Williams, maybe we could have got a fee. I feel like you'll almost have to let him leave, because for any team to pay any fee, it's probably going to be below the level you want to go to. Like if it was a championship team, I can't see a championship team spending £1 million, £2 million on him, which sounds really harsh, but that's where he is at the moment. So I just honestly, I wish him the best. And I just feel sorry for him. I think sometimes we do keep players a bit too much. And I just think they've stalled and they just need to go and play. And I wish them the best. Hopefully, maybe in a few years, you'll see them playing in like the Bundesliga 2 or the Championship or the Austrian League. But they just need to go and play and carve out decent careers.
Yeah, I think that's a point about keeping players a bit too long, and I think that comes close to the point that people are making about Jurgen and the fact that he's maybe he's what's the word? He wants to keep his familiar players around and wouldn't necessarily let him go. I think there was that conversation about him wanting to offer Milner another year of contract, where obviously it was time to let go. But yeah. I'm honestly on the fence with this one because I feel like it's 50-50. In a way, you'd need to create some sort of a culture at a club to where you make players feel safe in their careers and stuff like that. But indeed, you also have to challenge for the titles and you have to make what's best for the team and the business, I guess, in a way. So look at me saying that like a true capitalist.
But also you got to remember, if we're in pre-season and you have Williams and Koumetio, does Nalo Diallo get to play in this friendly game? Does he get to be really training with the first team? So you are actually at the same time you're blocking the next guy. So that's also what I think you got to think about as well.
Yeah, fair point. Dan, I'm gonna ask you the same question then on Rhys Williams and Koumetio. Your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just there's a lot of things that go into this. I'm gonna try to keep my answer short, Mihai. I love to pontificate on structural changes and individual autonomy. First of all, I think there was an issue with the fact that if you remember, Rhys Williams had his breakout season during COVID. So normally the people that would buy a Rhys Williams or a Koumetio were the teams mostly affected by the cash crunch of COVID, and you still see the repercussions of COVID throughout throughout all the leagues within all the other clubs that are not named Manchester City, PSG, or Manchester United. Those are really the three clubs, all for different reasons. So either you're backed by a state, you're a Red Bull club, or you're Manchester United are the only ones that have not really suffered as much, and they still had their own issues. It's just timing and bad luck. And also I think if not mismanagement, I think a lack of a adaptable plan for them going forward. If you remember during the COVID season, Klopp would not play Rhys Williams and Nat Phillips. He just did not play them. He very much tried to go with the Henderson, the Fabinho double pivot center back pairing, which listen, I'm not Fabinho was a good idea as a backup center back as your fourth choice. The problem with that is that when there are no other center backs, you need to put him with a center back. And also, if you remember that season, we got the best of Thiago when we had Fabinho or Henderson next to Thiago, allowing him to play and do his thing. I don't think it comes down to one person's decision. It's not all Klopp. It's not all FSG. It's a collaboration of many different decision makers who are commonly agreeing on similar goals, trying to solve a structural problem, and then making bad mistakes. I actually think that Liverpool have admitted they've made mistakes with their loans in their youth academy because they've literally hired people whose job it is to plan those. And I don't know who was doing that before. I think it was mostly just it was just I think it's who's in charge of the academy right now, Carter? Is it Inglethorpe, Alex Inglethorpe? Does anybody know
that name sounds familiar.
I think it
might be
him. So I think it's Alex Inglethorpe. So before it was like it was probably the head of scouting, the head of medical, the head of the academy. They were figuring out who to loan, who not to loan, and it was coming down the sporting director. But now they've hired someone whose job it literally is to figure out loans for their players. So I think that's a admission on that they have some culpability in not they're admitting their own responsibility and trying to address it with a structural change. I hate that because I thought Koumetio was the real deal. I thought he was one of those hidden gems within our youth development. I didn't think Rhys Williams would ever be a long-term starter for Liverpool unless he massively improved or just got faster. But he should have had a career after Liverpool. But I think that's just mostly down to injury and just bad luck with his loans, which can happen in football. I mean, Rhys Williams is definitely good enough to play for Ipswich. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, yes, he's not the fastest defender, but he could play for Bournemouth. He could play for Ipswich. He's not a crap footballer. He could definitely play upper championship, lower Premier League. Nat Phillips the same way. Nat Phillips is good in the air. His passing range isn't crap. If Lewis Dunk can get better at football, Nat Phillips and Rhys Williams can get better at football as well. And I think that's one thing we have to remember is that these are players at their jobs and they can still improve or decline in their jobs depending on so many different factors like all of us in life. So I'm sad that they haven't had the careers that I would like for them, just because it's good to see that from the academy. I think it's down to a lot of different issues and decisions, as well as, just the entropy of life and just not being able to get a situation that's ideal for you. And, I think they're trying to address that and hopefully not get us in a similar situation. And I just want them to get moved on and have careers. Maybe Liverpool get 2 million from them, maybe 1 million, and just wish them all the best.
Wish them all the best indeed. And with that in mind, we wish you all the best, to everyone who's tuned in this evening. With that in mind, we're going to end the stream tonight. I'm going to thank Dan, Shawn, and Carter for being here, for sharing their thoughts on the topics that we've had. Thanks to everyone who liked, subscribed, who left their comments in the chat. And make sure to tune in tomorrow as well. And if you're in here tomorrow, please make sure to mention Gaye, because the host for tomorrow's show is a huge Gaye fan. So he's gonna have his thoughts on him for sure. I think he doesn't miss, like Rich's like doesn't miss like any chance to mention that. I've said it 2 or 3 years ago. I've said it. We need to sign Gueye. It's basically like everything I've seen in pretty much every England game this Euros. And that, to be fair, that was also me with Drogoshin as well. So I'm not gonna be too hard on him. But that's about it. Thanks again to everyone who's been here this evening, and until tomorrow, up the Reds.